So this is the audio recording rig I've been using for a couple of months. The microphone is a Shure Beta 58A. The interface is a Focusrite Scarlett of some kind. There's some program or another running on my MacBook recording all of it. It's better than recording with a phone, although it is mono. Oh, I bet you can even see my teleprompter in the background. Anyway, I want to talk about this stuff. Sure. I feel kind of weird talking about them, I do admit. Most people who care probably pretty much know, but, well, I'll summarize. Shure is pretty old. They started to make a name for themselves in, like, the 1930s, though they have been doing other stuff before. They tended to go primarily toward making microphones for radio broadcast, as far as I can tell. Then they spread out into, like, military spec mics in the 1940s for, like, traditional portable radio transceivers for the field and units designed for fighter pilots and stuff like that. They've also done units for hearing aids, which is pretty cool. The big break for them was the SM57, which became heavily used for rock and roll vocals and became probably the most popular microphone in the world for live performances, certainly. Trivia rumor. The primary engineer credited with its design intended it to be more used as a classical music performance recorder. He hated rock. This Beta 58A I'm using is an evolution of that design. It's got, like, an improved pop filter, and I think this version might have a different polar pattern and some tuning adjustments. Nothing huge. It's pretty much the same thing, really. The transducer element is pretty precise for live performance-focused dynamic microphone. It's got a little bit of funky tuning going on. It's got a pretty severe bass cut and a treble boost. I get the sense that's specifically a live singing thing. I don't know, it's not really made for what I'm doing with it, although it's doing an okay job. I borrowed it from my dad. He used to sing in a band, and that's really the sort of thing it's meant for. It's got this funky pneumatic suspension inside to reduce handling noise and the general environmental rumblings, which I actually really do appreciate that it's got that. Buying a shock mount is kind of irritating sometimes. The off-axis noise rejection is pretty good. I mean, that's pretty decent. I mean, it would have to be, right? It's designed for being in the presence of loudspeakers. The build quality. Yeah, that's the important part. I'm prone to exaggeration. I'm going to try to keep this realistic. I'm pretty sure if your car goes off the road into a lake on the way to a gig, you can smash your way through your car's window with your Shure handheld, walk to your gig, and still sing through it. This thing is heavy, and it is sturdy, and it is rugged. But here's the thing. My microphone doesn't really leave the house. It barely even leaves my studio. I don't really need the casing to be forged in the heart of a dying star. And the off-axis noise rejection is nice, but it's not make or break for me. This isn't a gloriously treated room, but I mean, it's not loud in here. It's fine. So, in the new rig, I have a Neumann TLM 102. Should I say anything about them either? They're both huge companies. Whatever, it's my show. I'll talk however much I want to. I didn't really plan to buy a Neumann. They make a few models in the above $5,000 region, and I never really understood what the deal was. And then I did my research. I learned that though the first condenser microphone was allegedly made by a dude at Western Electric in the 19-teens, the first ones mass-produced were allegedly made by Neumann in the 1920s. All those cheap podcasting microphones in production right now. Most of them are based off of a Neumann circuit. Professional microphones. Most of them are based off a Neumann circuit. These weirdos are the real deal. And I now own the cheapest large diaphragm condenser microphone they make. Am I going to use it to its fullest? Probably not. But I tell you, I really like the way this thing handles spoken word. I'm doing more experiments as I get free time, but this thing is also supposed to be excellent for a lot of other things. Right, cheap. This was a $700 microphone. I did get it on Sweetwater's used gear exchange, though, for like half off, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. It's funny, I had a couple options in mind at about this price range, and I was saving up in preparation, and then I saw this listing, and my leaderboard reshuffled a little. This thing has not much off-axis noise rejection. It can hear the TV downstairs. There's no beating around the bush. It can hear the birds outside. But that's an interesting tool to have at your disposal in a controlled environment. If I want to record stuff happening in a wider area, I have some confidence that this thing can do a decent job. I was listening to test audio I recorded with this thing, and I kept checking my phone because it kept buzzing, but there was nothing on the phone. And then I realized the phone was in my pocket while I was recording the test audio, and it had been going off. I didn't even notice it at the time, but this thing recorded it with high enough fidelity that it was able to convince me like 2 hours later through the recording that my phone was buzzing. This is fun. The sound. I feel like I have a very trebly voice, like Tom Petty or Lord Voldemort. Large diaphragm condensers like this one tend to not necessarily boost bass, but give it a little extra warmth. I believe that's the industry standard phrase. Ironically, this is not a good demo for the sound this thing makes because I am putting it in the camera view, where it would not normally be, but trust me, it's pretty good. It's actually kind of interesting to me. Condensers have a reputation for extreme accuracy, but that's really basically just the small diaphragm ones. These large diaphragms ones are really valued for the warmth they give to the low end, just the gentlest touch of, like, abstraction. Well, the treble seems to be a little more clear than the Shure under ideal circumstances, and it's got improved sensitivity to bass and lower mid-range. I really like the sound this thing makes. The construction, it's readily disassemblable. When it arrived, the grill was actually a little bit loose. I'm assuming that's part of why it was half price. But it worked beautifully, so 5 stars to the seller. And then I took it apart, found some components not seated quite right, got them all resettled, put it back together, and now it is perfect. Let's see, where am I? It doesn't weigh a ton, really. You can see that it is tiny, so it can't really weigh a ton. But it feels really solid. Like, I've seen people say these things feel like jewelry. I can see that, and I do like it. I would say that it feels like laboratory equipment. And I really like that they got that feel out of it while still making it into a design that someone can get into if necessary. Downsides. Integrated pop filter. It's not really sufficient. I mean, the one on the Shure isn't either. I'm honestly just assuming that if a microphone has an integrated pop filter, it's probably not as good as just having an external one to use. I will be using this thing once I have this installed in its normal position. The integrated ones just always seem too peaky. I don't know. It's hard to get a good recording level when it just pops and crackles so much, you know. The basic TLM 102 does not come with a shock mount. The capsule is supposedly on a frame that's designed to flex and give it a little bit of isolation. I don't think that's sufficient. This thing is extremely sensitive. The pop filters are pretty cheap. I got a nice one, and it was under $50. The shock mount, it had to be from Neumann. They use this weird proprietary screw thread mounting mechanism. I can't find I have not been able to find a decent aftermarket one for it. So I went ahead and bought the Neumann one. It was not cheap, so I mean, I'd be more mad, but I looked up their initial 1920s condenser microphone, the CMV3, and it looks to me like it's got a really similar mechanism, so points for sticking with it. I'm not going to take off for that. And the shock mount was probably my favorite unboxing experience so far. I knew what the thing looked like, but that didn't prepare me for opening the box and it being like a freaking spaceship part with just like foam stuck in it in places to keep it still and shipping. Anyway, the Golden Age vintage pre-73 amplifier. I don't know much about it. I don't even know where it was made. I can't find a like origin stamp anywhere on it. It's meant to be a simplified clone of a Neve 1073 preamp. I think the 1073 has like a like equalization function in it. This is just gain stages, and I think there's a couple of filters you can bring in. It's capable of a bit of distortion. I brought it because that sounds like a nice thing to have around in case I need it. But mainly I use it on its cleanest setting, as a slight gain boost and as a source of phantom power. The Scarlett recording interface is supposed to be capable of phantom power, but it's being USB powered off a 13-inch MacBook. It should be fine. Phantom power is like 48 volts, but there's very little current draw. It's not a ton of power, but I'm playing it safe. I don't want to find out what surface-mounted capacitor in this thing is the weak link. Let's see, this thing's got a couple of filters, mainly to do with reducing bass and bringing out certain high frequencies. Let's see, it's got variable impedance on the input, which can change the voicing and volume of the microphone. Let's see. Oh, it has polarity inversion, which I think is useful for recording like acoustic instruments that also have a piezo element in the bridge. Maybe there's another use. I am not fully certain. I'll just leave that off for now. Let's see. I do actually have a couple of minor complaints about this thing. It seems like it's a little noisier than I'd like, although I did also buy new cables at the time, so that could be it. There's supposed to be like a VU meter here. There's a bunch of little LEDs that are supposed to light up and like show when it's starting to clip. They have not come on while I've been speaking into it. Sometimes you can kind of get them to go if you really wail on it, but they're very low sensitivity. They don't seem to do much. I do have like other places where I can graphically see what's happening, like over here in the recording, and you can see that one there, but it's got a little bit of latency on it for some reason. And I'm wearing monitors. I mean, I'm not super upset about that, but it would be nice if it worked. That would look pretty cool. I think that's pretty much everything. Well, I guess I could talk about the pop filter. The Stedman, whatever it is supposed to be really nice. It's a metal one. It's supposed to be like washable and have like a pretty good lifetime on it. Apparently the cloth ones can kind of get dirty and there's not really a good way to clean them. This is supposed to sort of outlast, and it seems like it works pretty well in the testing I've done. If I blow on it, I can feel the air being redirected downward, which is pretty cool. I don't know how they get that stuff to work, but I can't really take it apart to see because look, there's no parts. Anyway, I think that's about all I've got to say for now. I'm really excited about learning more about recording. As my coworker said, it's like another instrument in addition to whatever you're playing that you have to learn. And this seems like a really nice, just wonderful microphone that I'm excited about using. This thing got so many freaking features on it that I don't know how to use, and I'm excited to learn how to do it. I got all this stuff like 2 weeks ago. I don't know why I'm doing a review right now. I guess I'm just excited, and I want to mention how excited I am. Anyway, that's done. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.